Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. My name is Paul Sanneman. I'm your host. I'm founder of Contractor Staffing Source, where we help contractors build great teams. Logan Shinholser, is that right, or I'm close?
That
Right.
was it. That was it.
Okay, is our guest today from Contractors Growth Network, I guess better known as CGN. So we've talked a lot of marketing companies, right? And everybody says some they're big, they're different, they're awesome, okay. So give me your elevator. What makes you different from all the other marketing companies out there that are working with contractors? What makes you guys special? And tell me their backstory.
Sure. So, backstory is I fell into this marketing stuff 11 years ago at this point. My dad was a pond and water feature contractor, and he had a marketing company that he was working with, just a local generic marketing company. And it just wasn't working, right? I remember they were like, "Oh, we'll market this big customer service event for you. We'll bring all your customers there." And the very first event that they threw, out of a list of maybe like 1,000 customers, I think they had like 11 show up. Which, as you can imagine, as a business owner, it's like, you're going to like the
It's
Sadie
funny.
Hawkins dance, just trying to get
Right,
somebody to pick
right.
you, and 11 people show up out of 1,000. So they tried again, and they said, "Look, we're going to redo how we do this strategy one more time." And one person showed up. And at that point, I think that was like the final straw that my dad then, on the way back from a pond conference, they have those, turned to me and said, "Logan, if I'm going to waste money on marketing, I might as well waste it on my own son. Do you want to try this thing?" And I knew nothing about marketing, but he just said, "I'd rather pay you than pay somebody else. I want you to figure it out. My only thing is I want you to make my phone ring with people that know what it already looks like to work with me." So started doing it all with him. 3 years later, it was working so well that his buddies, also contractors, started to reach out and say, "Hey, Logan, can you do the same thing that you're doing for your dad, but I want you to do it for me?" So the stuff that worked back then, which was all storytelling, appealing to your ideal client, like all that kind of stuff, it's all the same stuff that works today. Like, I've been running this company now for 8 years. We've tried all the different tips and tricks and hacks and all the things that you think that you're like hacking your way to the top. But out of all those things, the real, just building out content, building out a strong brand, and just aligning what you do with what your prospects are looking for, that still is the number one thing that works today. So we do the same stuff. CGN, we're focused on strategy, websites, SEO. Essentially, it's identifying who you're going after, what makes you special, which turns into your marketing message, and then looking at the brand as a whole, looking at the website, getting people to the website, and then building out video marketing on social media. So long story short, very strategic way of really growing, and then attracting what we call referral quality leads. But it's all really geared towards design focused contracting companies. So I know a 30-year audience is home service. These principles still apply, but what we specialize in is more remodeling, landscaping, home building, companies that it's a longer sales cycle. It's not, my pipe burst, I need somebody out
All right.
today. It's a longer sales cycle, so that's what we're all geared towards.
Okay, so there's a lot of debate today on various subjects. One is some people say Google is the answer, spend all your money. Well, I guess there's been this divide between, do I spend my money on search engine optimization? Do I spend my money on paid ads? Where do I spend it? How do I spend it? And so, in your opinion, because you're an expert in this, you've got a budget, let's say, pick a number, 3,000, 4,000 months, not very big.
Sure.
If you're for, that's it, you're all in. So where am I going to spend my money?
It depends on what industry you're in. So back to that quick, call back from a minute ago. If you're in a home service where it's 95 degrees outside and my AC just went out, you need to be at the top of Google. So easiest place is just to spend money on Google Ads and get to the top right there. Everybody wants SEO. Everybody wants to be at the top of Google. So eventually you'll want to, slowly, start to be able to do both. But if you're working with a limited budget, if you're on the quick, immediate response side of things, Google Ads is going to be great. If you're on the longer sales cycle side of things, remodeling, home building, things like that, SEO is going to be your place to be. And then the second question on that is about AI, and is Google still a thing? AI pulls, it's learning from the internet. So like right now, like ChatGPT is pulling from Bing, right? So if it's pulling from Bing, then obviously you want to appeal to what Bing is looking for, and Google has their own version as well. So Google is, and these search engines, they're not going away. I mean, Google is one of the wealthiest companies in the world. So I don't know if it's, can you hear it?
It's fine. No problem.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yes. I mean, Google's not going away. They're just going to adjust on how they do things. So like they're already putting in AI summaries into their searches, like stuff like that. So like this is not a Blockbuster situation where they're like, we're not doing streaming. We're only sticking with DVDs. They're still the future. And then 5 years later, they're going away. Google will update. So they're actually going to work hand in hand, like all these AI tools, like all that, ChatGPT-esque stuff with the search engines, because they have a vested interest in it all going really well.
Okay, so just for the average guy, let's say, at least my clients is that there's some private equity coming into certain areas, right? And they're like rising. The price of Google Ads seems to be rising significantly because a lot of people with a lot of cash, and I'm going to call it the Walmartization of some industries. There's big companies coming with a lot of cash that can afford to spend money to get to the top of Google, and your local guy probably can't do that. So how does he compete with companies that have more money than they do and being heard, among all the noise out there to get people to call him versus somebody else?
Yeah. So what you're talking about, I'm assuming, is you're looking more at home service, so like the HVACs of the world.
Well, even yeah, they're doing that industry. Also, just in general, Google ads are going up, right? I mean, they're not getting
Correct.
cheaper. And
Yeah.
so, and the question goes, well, what is the ROI? I mean, if I'm going to spend 20 bucks an ad, it's fine. If I'm spending 100 bucks an ad, it's not cheap. So how do I tell?
The biggest thing that, especially on the remodeler builder, like the visual industry side, is really building out the brand that you have for the company. So a lot of that comes in like, after we figure out exactly who we want to market to, because the issue is a lot of people just, when they build out a website, it's very generic. It's just like, I'm the best kitchen remodeler in Charlotte, where I'm located. But
Right.
there's nothing else that like talks about what you specialize in. Is there a certain, design aesthetic, or are you really good at maybe like home additions, which is more of a jigsaw puzzle compared to just like I can step in and in a matter of like a week, redo this whole kitchen as long as we're not like reconfiguring the space. So really figuring out who you're going after and what you specialize in, and then from there, it's the media. It's what are you showing off? Like you could sit here and say that you're the best kitchen company in Charlotte, but like maybe the taste preference that my wife and I want on our new kitchen, maybe you don't do that, right? Or maybe you don't specialize it or things like that. So actually having good media, especially photos, like if you sell a high ticket thing, I mean, a lot of people, like we work with a lot of companies that come in and they're like, I don't have professionally shot photos. And I'm like, well, why not? And they're like, well, this is just like, this kitchen's only like 50 grand. Like I'm at the, more inexpensive end of the market for Charlotte. And I'm like, 50 grand is still a car. Like you don't see car companies trying to sell their new car with no photos or like iPhone photos with their thumb over it. Like you still
Right.
need to sell this stuff off. Like this is an expensive thing. So having good media, photos first, then video is going to be the next piece. That's a huge way to be able to stand out and differentiate, because a lot of these big PE firms, especially if they're going into home service, that's like a different ball game. But even if they're coming into more of the, let's say, scale ready remodeling companies, I mean, there's a whole ability to like still be the local guy that people enjoy, but you have to build your brand in a way that aligns with who you want to go after. So that would be a very easy way to do it.
So
Is just
let's
find a
talk about
specialty.
let's talk about building brand. Okay, so I'm sure you're at the Ask You Answer, and in fact I heard him one conference the other day. So he says it's all about content. In his opinion, that people make most of their decision before they even call you. Do you agree with that or not? That they look around, they do the research, whatever they look on the internet, and they finally make a decision. I think this is the guy I want to use, and then they call you. So the idea of the sales guy making the sale versus the information making the sale is changing. You agree with that?
I agree with that. So again, back to, let's say, two different sides of the industry. Long sales cycle, remodeling, building. They're going to look through a bunch of different companies, look through the portfolios, want to get multiple bids, things like that. Now you flip it on the other side, which is, let's say, home service, immediate need. This is what law firms have done for forever. Like when you drive, law firms have these billboards up over and over and over. And it's because when you get in a car accident, you don't know when you need a lawyer, right? You don't know when that is. But what we all know is we don't want the ambulance chasing law firms to, because like they don't have a good stigma, and if that's what they're doing, they may not be the best to actually represent you in court. So what do? We advertise before somebody gets in that car accident. So by the time that they get in the accident, they then go, oh, I've seen Morgan & Morgan's billboard all over the place. So when the need arises, they already know basically who to call. So it's the same thing on the home service side. So the branding side is huge where, maybe if somebody's pipe bursts and there's just water just rushing through, like that's going to be more of like, who could I just call right now? But, the AC goes out, heating goes out. You're going to think, the home service companies that I have hired to come out and like replace my water tank and stuff like that, like it's people that I've seen their trucks all over town. So I know there's a level of like trust already there because I see them everywhere and they look credible and they and inadvertently they're showing up on time and it's like my wife can't believe it. So it's two different ways to do it, but overall content is going to be the way, because it's still, what you and I are doing right now, this is content. So like if you're sitting here listening to this going, can't work for me, like you are part of it. So you can only get by so much.
So let's talk about, how do you build a brand? You hear about brand, do you change the logo? Do you get out there on, there's obviously there's trucks and signs and, I guess radio and television are still out there in the universe somewhere. So how do you build a brand? What would be tell me an example of a brand you built and how you did it. People do it that way.
Sure. So right now, let's just like last person we just launched their website for, and you have brand, you have branding. So brand is, in a nutshell, when you leave the room and somebody goes, tell me about Logan's Remodeling Company, what are they going to say? All right. That's basically what a brand is. So it's not just what you physically are seeing, but a behind the scenes piece. Branding is going to be more of like the visual side. So the logo, what colors, stuff like that. We just launched a new website for a client. They've been in business for 35 years and the dads run it for the whole time. The kids now are taking over. Company name is called Longacre Construction. And essentially what we did with them was we sat down and said, okay, tell us about who you're going after in the market, right? And they're like, we use this software. So they use JobTread, right? So they're like, we want to be seen as more innovative. We're also doing a lot more designs ahead of time. So instead of just coming in and being the hands of the project, we also want to be seen as the brains of the project as well. So two quick examples, more innovative, but also more design focused. What we then do is we look at, okay, let's look at your logo. Right now, their old logo was like a Roman column, if you will, that said, kind of also merged into an L that had a bunch of, angles on it and stuff. And essentially we look at that, and if you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It just looks, one, more like an architect, and two, it's pretty dated. It was developed 35 years ago, so as time has gone on, it just starts to become stale. So then when they go, we want to be seen as innovative and design focused, yet the first thing that somebody's going to see, which is the logo, is dated and doesn't even look like it aligns with what the services they provide are. That's when we go, okay, great. What do we need to do to update this? So then we start to build out different logo options, different color schemes, things like that. So basically, that's how you would create the logo. Is like, who do you want to go after? It's not. I think the number one misconception with logos is like, the logo has to show that we've been in business for 35 years and give our phone number and say all the services that we do. And it's not that. It's meant to just be able to be a visual icon that if somebody looks at it, they're able to go, okay, that looks good enough. And then also on top of that,
whatever, right?
Yeah, they just you have to be able to recognize it. Or brand is a big brown box truck drives by, there's a good chance it's UPS. So it's stuff like that. So that's where you start, you build the whole thing out. And then from there, the website aligns with the color schemes and the fonts and stuff like that, truck wraps, shirts, all that sort of stuff. So that's basically how we do it.
Okay. And so what is it? Marketing costs different kinds of people. So how do you charge and how do you decide, how much someone should spend on marketing? What percent of their budget? Let's say you got a remodeling company that's doing $5 million, right?
Yep.
And so the question is, and they're making, I don't know, maybe 5%, maybe they get 250,000, not making a ton of money because they're not running that great. Let's say they're using JobTread and they've got, they're like your average $5 million, remodeling company. So you come in and they don't even know what their budget should be. They may be spending a couple $1,000, not sure. How do you deal with something like that? Where do you start?
Yeah, so truth be told, if they're operating at a 5% net profit, I'm going to send them over to a coaching program first to get that stuff squared away because there's probably a lot of issues going on there. But let's assume we get past that. It depends on how aggressive you want to be in your marketing. If you really want to be super aggressive, you're closer to upwards of 10% on a $5 million company. I don't think you need to spend, $500,000 on marketing, but you're probably looking at about, 250 grand to be at that upper end of like, we can do a lot of the right stuff with 250. Low end, I wouldn't be below 100 for a $5 million company. So as you grow up, it's not so much a game of scale typically in like the remodeling home building space as it is maybe home service. So the numbers are a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, anywhere
You're
from
saying 5 to 10% of growth, something like that.
Yeah, 10% would be on the upper end if you're already at 5 million. I would say, probably closer to like 3 to 6% would be like, if you're at 5 million, my number.
Okay. Now, of that money, how much goes to you? How much goes to direct spend? How is that allocated?
In best practice or in Logan at CGN?
And Logan at CGN.
Most everything is going to go, well, of that, let's just say our high-end all-in package, you're probably looking at 120, we'll say, right? That's branding, that is actual like research where we're calling back your past customers, learn what they like about you, website, SEO, video ads, like all that stuff. Most of it is going to be going to CGN. So most of that's going to be put into the branding, the website production of the video, doing all the SEO, all that stuff we do in-house. A percentage, like a small of it, you're looking at like, say maybe 1,500 to 30 grand a month is just going towards like Meta, like Instagram, Facebook ads, stuff like that. But most of it's going to be going to us because everything that we build, we're building on your own owned platform. So we're not taking 100 grand and 95 of that putting it into Google's pocket, which is ads. Most of that's going right into your brand, which is your website, your branding, all your videos, things like that.
Okay. So once you do the initial, say 125,000, then over time, does it go down or does it stay the same or how does that work?
Yeah, it'll go down because at that point, you already have a website that's built out. Like you don't need to rebuild it out. And you already have a brand that's been redone. And you already have like your core testimonial videos done. So at that point, then it'll shift down. You're probably looking closer at the time of this recording to about like $5,500 a month.
Okay. And then do you do everything in the United States? What's your market, especially if you're
US.
actually doing videos yourself? So you go to where you actually fly there and do the videos or have somebody else do that?
Our video team's in Ann Arbor, Michigan right now, and I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we used to do it where we were like, send us content and we'd edit it here. It's too hard and we just do this. So now we have a production team that will fly out there and do it.
Okay, so resurrection's harder than birth, right? I mean, you might have to do it right the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
So
you do the video. Now, do you mess at all with things like signs, trucks, the other content?
Yeah, so we won't actually print the stuff out. We're not a print shop, but as part of like branding, what we will do is we will create the new logo, the new visuals, and then from there design out the truck wraps, the shirts, the sign, like the folders, like all like the basic branding stuff that you need. So we'll design all that stuff out, but we're not going to wrap the truck.
Got it. Okay. And so can you give me one example of a company you've worked with and sort of what happened, sort of a success story?
Sure. Let's say AKN. They're a remodeling company up in Pittsburgh. We came in, newer guy. I think he was doing about $500,000 in revenue, rebuilt his website, did a lot of the foundational SEO stuff for him. And he was just like a basic package, not like the all-in package, just like really website and some additional stuff. I think now he's a little bit over like 2.5 million, I would say. Big job trade guy. It's kind of a running joke that like every time we do something for him, it makes him more money. So, yeah, he's a good one. So I would like check him out. But yeah,
it went from 5 to how long did that take? A year, 3 years to get from
2 years? I think it was 2 years.
That's like percentage growth. That's like huge. That's 100%.
It's huge. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of it was like I mean, Andrew's like the guy who does. He's young. He's building up good relationships, but it's like he's got the right foundational pieces in place. He builds good stuff, which ultimately, if you have good photos, like we can do a lot with great photos. So, yeah, he's a great one.
Okay, cool. So Logan, if people want to get in touch with you, do you have like an initial visit or you look at their stuff? I mean, because pretty much every list is spending some money on marketing with somebody. But the
Sure.
question is, if they're going to call you, why should they spend it with you versus somebody else? So to do that, they're going to need to talk to you. So how would that work?
Yeah, so our website, contractorgrowthnetwork.com, that's where you can schedule a call with us. And basically what we're going to do, we have a intake form. It's pretty lengthy, but we go through it together of identifying who's your favorite client that you want to duplicate. Because ultimately, we don't want to build all this marketing around, I don't know, client A, when in reality, you really just want to market to client B. So we figure all that stuff out together on the call. Then from there, we do a whole audit strategy, put it back together, and then come back and sit down and go, this is what we found. These are realistic expectations around what we think we can do for you, and then we take it from there.
Okay, so it's like an initial evaluation. You say, well, this is where you are, this is where you want to go, and this is what we think it's going to cost to get there, or something like that.
Yeah, most of the initial evaluations of marketing are just like, hey, I ran a report, your SEO sucks, like your website's too slow, but like nobody knows how to tie ROI to a slow website versus not.
Right.
So we'll actually go through like, who is your ideal client? What are the things that make you special? And most people go, I communicate well. And I'm like, that's great, but everybody says that. Like, how are you communicating with them? And then we'll identify, well, you do daily log updates. Okay, great. That's perfect. We want that on the website right now. Where's it on the website? It's not.
Right.
Okay. Well, so it's a more in-depth version of like really figuring out exactly what makes your ideal client tick, what you do that's special for them, and that becomes like the base level like marketing messaging that we want to put out.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure everybody has a marketing budget listening to this and is wondering whether they're spending on the right stuff or not. We always have that question. So I'd call Logan, give him a shot because you do specialize in contractors, which is great. A lot of agencies do a little bit of everything, so you know what you're doing. So thanks, Logan. I appreciate you being here.
Cool. Thank you.